Still trying to get word, Suzanne, on this male Asian suspect that was apparently wearing all black. We have not been able to confirm whether or not that suspect has been taken into custody or where his location is. As we continue to look at these pictures, this is a video that was taken a little earlier when we started seeing some of the victims being taken out to a number of ambulances. And then look at that shot there. You got it on the gurney, the victim on the gurney. Then you have a number of students who are being escorted off the campus. You can only imagine what those students are thinking.
Yes, and we have an unfortunate number to update you about. At least 7 victims confirmed injured at Saugus and being treated right now at Saugus High School. 7
victims. 1 is one too many. 7 is most certainly a lot, even though we've seen a large number of different shootings across the country where the number is extreme. But this is still the beginning. It's just 8:14, and the shooting happened around 7:30 this morning. So authorities are still trying to search this building to see if there are indeed more victims and possibly more suspects. We know of one that they have described as a male Asian who was wearing all black at the time of the shooting. But, you know, you can never be too safe when you're investigating a situation like this. So we're, again, monitoring the situation and watching authorities pretty much comb this entire campus just to see where indeed the hot spots are. We have seen an area in the courtyard that we had been focusing on all day where they were doing CPR on one of the victims, and then you saw a number of authorities run to a nearby building that was close by as well and sort of surrounded. So we're still trying to figure out what type of activity was happening there as well. But again, this is Saugus High School in Santa Clarita. We have at least 7 victims now confirmed injured. Not sure what number was affected by gunshots, if any were impacted by gunshots, but we do know it is most certainly severe because we saw, again, one of the victims being treated with CPR. More than 1,000 students attend this high school. It is in a residential neighborhood. You can see all the homes there. You can also see how police have done a pretty good job at cordoning off this area, barricading this area off and making sure that they have the suspect trapped if indeed he is trying to get away, because we don't know yet whether or not he has been taken into custody.
The LA County Sheriff's Department, we should mention, numerous local law enforcement agencies, as well as some federal agencies that have leaned in to try to assist with this. Now that the emergency side of the case has been largely wrapped up, the investigative phase is really the focus of all of this. A couple of things that we're hearing. First of all, multiple law enforcement sources across a number of different agencies have told us they believe the individual who committed this act today, a 15-year-old student from the high school there, shot himself in the head. He was taken to a hospital, and they're telling us that he is deceased. Although the one caveat being, and I hate to even mention this, it's just a terrible thing to discuss, but when young people are critically injured and have no chance of survival, there is often talk of organ donation. So that may be one factor in why we're not hearing that directly from law enforcement yet. Second, the investigators are telling us that they have some very, very specific information that has helped them really within the last hour or so piece together a timeline of exactly what happened this morning beyond witness accounts. And they're not being more specific than that, but they say they've been able to review some evidence that leaves no question about what happened, who was responsible, and the chain of events. They also told us that one thing they're looking into, clearly the motive is a major factor here. Everybody wants to know why. Not that there's ever going to be a rational explanation for this, but they do try to look for the evidence that explains in some way what happened here. They want to be able to address those kinds of things in the future if they detect the same kind of indications in another case, and then also for the sake of really understanding every little detail about what happened here. One of the things that they say they're focused on is why today. In investigations like this, we have learned over the years that oftentimes there are events. They will sometimes call them stressors, things that make this day different from all other days. Why was it today that this happened as opposed to yesterday or tomorrow or 3 months ago? We don't have a lot of clarity on what that is, but it sounds like it's something that the investigators looking at this are really focusing on right now. Again, we're hearing that this 15-year-old boy, the student at the school, shot himself on campus and then was transported away. They're not giving us specific information about how they know so much specifics about the chain of events this morning, but they say it is very, very clear. It leaves no question in the investigator's mind about who was involved, how this all played out this morning, and we're expecting that when the sheriffs decide to come out and share some information publicly in the next hour or so, we might get a lot more insight into what they're looking at.
This is kind of the situation here at Saugus High School, where things in terms of security at the campus appear to be stable, at least in some way, but that is certainly some good news here. But again, from what we have seen at least 4 people injured, with one person having CPR being performed. So again, the LA County Sheriff's Department is going to be here all day long, and they're going to be working on their investigation. The LA County Fire Department is also here basically to help any medical situation that still might be here. Now, we understand there is a helicopter that is going to be just 3 to 4 minutes out, potentially or presumably to transport any injured victims who might need some urgent medical attention here. So that is going to be something that we will be watching as well. So we are over Saugus High School here, Centurion Avenue, just off of Bouquet Canyon Road. I can see out front there are a whole host of LA County Sheriff's deputy vehicles here, as well as LA County Fire Department here. You would imagine that parents are going to start arriving here if they know that their students were here during the early morning hours. This all happened before 8 o'clock. Perhaps there might have been classes that were taking place before 8 o'clock, or perhaps some sporting or things like that, activities that happened before school officially starts. But again, this all happened at about 7:30 this morning, a shooting situation here again.
So when we heard the first gunshot, we thought it was not something serious, and then we heard 2 more. Till
like the third.
Yeah, till the third, and then Grace grabbed me, and Lauren ran after with our friend Connor and Megan, and we ran. I ran up court away to the park a little bit, and then Grace called over, and I turned my head, and I saw that there was a house open, letting kids in. Yeah. And that was my first instinct, to get into a house where it was locked and secure. So then we sprinted into the house.
I was just gonna
and
run.
we locked the door, and that was basically how we got in.
Yeah, my plan was just get down the. My brain was just saying get out. So right down the stairs, and I was just gonna run as deep into the neighborhood as I could.
That's where I was.
And then I was running. I was running towards this way, and I saw him at the door. And someone asked, "Is your house open?" So that's when, and he said yes. So that's when I came over. But I was just gonna run as deep as far as the ways I could get.
Have you had any of the police officers talk to you guys yet?
No.
We've pretty much just been in the house.
It's scary for, the drills that we do. It depends on how a teacher, depends on the teacher how they react. Some make you still sit there and do homework. Some others are parents, so they know it's more serious, so they turn off the lights and have you get down and hide. It just depends on the teacher.
But it's also just scary how unprepared I think all of us were, because they didn't prepare us to actually be scared. Because in a scary situation,
and it's really not allowed to run off campus.
We couldn't think. We could not think in that. Maybe it felt like hours, but it was really 5 seconds. We could not process.
Drills, yeah, we were just standing there.
In the drills, we just locked the door.
They will continue teaching us.
Exactly. They don't scare us like there's something
going to happen ever to us.
And then it's just how
they want us to stay calm and know what to do.
But the thing is, in an actual situation, we're not going to stay calm. That's not how we work. We will panic and we will run.
And they have told us, if it's a real drill, we don't care if you're off campus, hop the fences, do what you have to do to get as far away from campus as possible. So we knew to do that, but we never actually have done it until it was real.
All right, so folks.
We have former Congresswoman Katie Hill joining us on the phone. You've been tweeting about all of the activity this morning. You're on top of it. And Katie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
What do you know right now? What information can you share with us and your constituents?
Well, I think the information is very fluid, but the latest that I've been hearing is from my dad, who's in law enforcement, not sheriff's department, but is that it's very likely that the suspect has shot himself, but we don't know that. That's not confirmed. That we have, you have to have ID to pick your kids up from Central Park, which is the park right across the street, and that so the students are being allowed out, and I think that the suspect is contained in a single area. But the students, and we had so many students that were volunteers and interns on our campaign. We're incredibly worried about who is impacted. My parents have friends who have kids there, and so it's younger siblings. This is the same school that both I, my sister, and my brother all went to.
Yeah, I was about to say, this is your alma mater here. Can you tell us about the school and the number of students that may have possibly been there? I think more than 1,000 students attend this school.
Oh yeah, 2,400 students, so about 3,000 people, I think, at least, that go there. I mean, that are there, including faculty. And it's a large school, so it's a difficult area to kind of try and contain. And it sounds like they handled it in the most effective and orderly way possible. As a result of, unfortunately, the training that these students have had to go through. I mean, I was there 15 years ago. I graduated, and the thought of having an active shooter drill never would have even crossed our minds. But just within the last 10 years, you've seen how much this has changed for students, and that's why March for Our Lives, that organization up here, really activated and student-led by all of the different high schools out here. The Moms Demand Action group was incredibly active, and it's just heartbreaking. This is what you fear, and more and more I heard students say that it's not just about will or could this happen to us, but when.
With that said, because of your work here in California and, of course, in Washington and across the country, I'm sure you get this question often. What can we do? What will we be able to do to stop this?
Well, it's a difficult question. I mean, in the House, they've passed 4 different pieces of legislation that would impact, gun deaths substantially. We don't know the individual cause of each single incident, of how that person acquired the weapon. So, this is a 15-year-old kid. It's hard to say what happened. Our community has a higher number of guns per capita than most, and so you have to imagine that there's a good chance that it was acquired from a friend or family member's home. But I think we also have to remember at the same time, and I'm not. This isn't always a talking point, but we have to remember at the same time, this is a 15-year-old student that this happened to. So what are we missing? What social supports need to be in place to prevent this kind of thing from happening in the first place? And a 15-year-old, I just think of how my little brother was when he was 15 years old, and how damaged or disturbed a mind must be by this point. And that's a failure on society. It's not just an individual fault.
And Katie, they're starting to center now more deputies and units near Arroyo Seco Junior High. You went to junior high school there. They are on Sycamore Drive. Can you tell us about this area? Yep,
it's totally suburban. It's an older community in Saugus. That I don't know that there's a lot to say, but it's very middle income. It's people move here for safe schools and for safe communities. Saugus has always been one of the safest communities in the country. It was just in the top 10 list of safest areas in California, and I think it's just this is something that people in the past would never have expected could make it to our community, and just within the last 2 years have been increasingly concerned that it might.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us and taking the time out of your schedule to sort of give us some insight, and had no clue that this was your alma mater, so I'm sure this hits a lot closer to home than the other shootings, of course, across the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.